meeting is being recorded and/or transcribed.
Do we have Kristen on the phone?
Yeah, Kristen's here.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to proceed then. Sorry for the delay. Good morning, everyone. I'm David Barish. Morning. David Barish, Chairman of the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. Before we get started, I'd just like to make a brief statement about this rather unusual manner in which we're meeting this morning. As everyone listening in knows, this meeting is a regularly scheduled public session of the board. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic currently impacting our state, we're holding the meeting telephonically from remote locations in furtherance of the directives given by the health officials both here in Pennsylvania and at the federal level relative to social distancing. On March 6, 2020, Governor Wolf made a disaster emergency declaration regarding this situation. This was followed by a March 11th advisory issued by the Office of Open Records, which was also updated on March 18th. The Office of Open Records has advised that under these emergency circumstances, the public business of the Commonwealth can be conducted via teleconference, and this is the key, so long as a mechanism was put in place to allow public access. We have done that here by providing public access to the audio of this meeting through the board's website, as well as publishing the call-in information for this teleconference. Additionally, as is always the case, we have a court reporter dialed in who will be transcribing this meeting for subsequent distribution. That being said, I would just ask as a technical matter that anyone who is called into this meeting to please keep their phone on mute unless and until you are asked to speak. Also, before anyone coming before the board speaks, please make sure that it is clear for the record who you are. Before I take the next step, have we yet heard back from the Department of Agriculture?
I have not.
Okay. All right. In addition to each of the 7 board members who are with us today, all board members are present on the phone. Also present is Jen Langen, representing Joe Torsello, the State Treasurer, and Kristen Heidingsfelder, representing Secretary of Revenue Dan Hassel. At the moment, no representative from the Department of Agriculture is on the phone, but we are trying to contact them at this time. At this point, I'd call the meeting to order. The first order of business being the Pledge of Allegiance, which I will lead. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. By way of announcements, the board held an executive session yesterday, Tuesday, March 31st, to discuss personnel matters and to conduct quasi-judicial deliberations relating to matters coming before the board today. That meeting yesterday was also conducted telephonically. First order of business, I'd like to have a consideration of a motion to approve the minutes and transcripts of our February 12th meeting. May I have such a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Kernodle, and I move that the board approve the minutes and transcripts of February 12th, 2020 meeting.
Is there a second?
Second by Logan.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The motion is adopted. Next order of business, Office of Chief Counsel. Doug?
Yes, this is Doug Sherman. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. There are 5 petitions before the board today for consideration. Each will be decided on the documentary record, as they are matters in which the record is closed, or they are matters for which there is no opposition to the relief requested. In each of these matters, the board has, in advance of this meeting, been provided with all of the documentary evidence and filings of record. The first petition before the board today comes from Stadium Casino RE LLC. On July 26, 2019, Stadium filed a petition requesting a sports wagering certificate and approval to conduct sports wagering in Pennsylvania. The petition sought board approval to conduct land-based wagering at both its Category 2 and Category 4 licensed facilities using one sports wagering certificate and paying one mandatory $10 million certificate fee. The Office of Enforcement Counsel did not object to Stadium's request for certificate to conduct sports wagering at its Category 2 facility or to conduct interactive sports wagering. However, they did object to Stadium's request for permission to conduct sports wagering at both its Category 2 and Category 4 facility with only one certificate. A public hearing on the matter was held before the board at the October 30th, 2019 public meeting. After hearing the evidence and arguments of both Stadium and OEC, the board voted to grant Stadium's request to conduct sports wagering at its Category 2 facility in Philadelphia and online as a form of internet-based sports wagering. The board deferred Stadium's request to conduct sports wagering at its Category 4 facility under the same certificate as that granted to the Category 2 facility. The matter now before the board is whether to permit Stadium to conduct sports wagering at its Category 2 facility in Philadelphia and at its Category 4 facility in Westmoreland County using just that one certificate. This would result in Stadium paying only one authorization fee, and the matter with respect to the Category 4 facility is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any questions or comments from the board at this time? Hearing none, is there a motion?
This is Commissioner Mustillo. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve Stadium Casino RE LLC's request to conduct sports wagering at its Category 4 facility under one certificate as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Second
Is
by
there a
Rachel.
second? Thank you. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No.
Nay.
Nay.
I'd just like to, for the record, identify, were there 3 nays? The chair voted no. Who were the other 2 noes that I thought I heard?
Commissioner Smiley voted no.
And Commissioner Kernodle voted no.
Okay. As I understand it, that would be a 4-3 vote. That does not meet the supermajority requirements. Is that correct, Doug?
That would be correct, so the motion fails.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's proceed.
Okay, next before the board is the joint petition of DraftKings Incorporated, Crown PA Gaming Incorporated, Crown PA DFS Incorporated, SB Tech Global Limited, and SB Tech Malta Limited. The parties are requesting authorization to proceed with a multi-step merger, which will result in a change of control of upstream parent companies of entities directly involved in gaming in the Commonwealth. The merger will result in a change of control of numerous board licensees. DraftKings is a digital sports entertainment and gaming company, and they are the ultimate parent company of Crown PA Gaming and Crown PA DFS. Crown PA Gaming provides sports wagering and mobile sports wagering on behalf of the Meadows, and they will provide interactive gaming at Hollywood Casino. Crown PA DFS offers fantasy sports play throughout Pennsylvania. SB Tech is a worldwide provider of sports wagering and interactive technology. They are the ultimate parent company of SB Tech Malta, and SB Tech Malta provides sports wagering at Presque Isle. They are licensed as an interactive gaming manufacturer. Under the proposed transaction, present shareholders of DraftKings will receive stock in DEAC Nevada, an entity which will change its name to DraftKings Incorporated. Present shareholders in SB Tech will get a combination of cash and stock in DraftKings Incorporated, while present shareholders of DEAC will retain its stock when the company changes its name to DraftKings Incorporated. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to the request for change in ownership, subject to several conditions outlined in their answer, and this matter is now ready for the board's consideration to approve the change of control.
Thank you, Doug. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please? Commissioner Reitzel, do you have a motion?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't unmute it. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board approve DraftKings Inc., Crown PA Gaming Inc., Crown PA DFS Inc., SB Tech Global Limited, and SB Tech Malta Ltd's petition for approval of change of control as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you.
Commissioner Santoni.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next petition before the board today is Nicholas Karagiannis's request for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. In April 2017, Mr. Karagiannis, who was 19 years old at the time, entered Valley Forge Casino by providing a false identification to security. While on the gaming floor, he actively gamed and was served alcoholic beverages. Mr. Karagiannis left the gaming floor, and upon re-entering, it was discovered that his ID was fraudulent. He was charged with summary offenses and permanently evicted from Valley Forge. On October 4th, 2017, following a petition filed by the Office of Enforcement Counsel, the board placed Mr. Karagiannis on the exclusion list until at least his 22nd birthday, at which time he would be able to request a removal. Mr. Karagiannis is now 22 years old and is requesting removal from the list. OEC has no objection to the request, and it's that request that is ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Denise, Commissioner Smiler. I move that the board approve Nicholas Karagiannis's petition for removal from the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Kernodle seconded.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next before the board today is Edward Rogers' request for removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. By way of background, in March 2016, while on the gaming floor at Mohegan Sun, Mr. Rogers inappropriately touched a beverage server. Upon being confronted by security, he admitted to his actions. Consequently, he was banned from the casino, was charged criminally, and pled guilty to a summary harassment offense. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Rogers on the involuntary exclusion list. The parties reached an agreement, and on October 5th, 2016, the board issued an order approving a consent agreement between Mr. Rogers and the Office of Enforcement Counsel, which had the effect of placing Mr. Rogers on the exclusion list for at least 3 years. It's now been over 3 years since he was placed on the list, and Mr. Rogers is requesting removal. OEC has no objection to his request, and that request to be removed from the involuntary exclusion list is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you, Doug. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Kernodle, and I move that the board approves Edward Rogers' petition for removal from the PGCB involuntary exclusion list described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Sean Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion's adopted.
The final petition before the board today pertains to Terrence Cannon's request for early reapplication, seeking a gaming employee occupation permit. By way of background, in October of 2015, Mr. Cannon submitted an application seeking a gaming employee permit to work at Parks Casino. During the Bureau of Investigation Enforcement's background investigation, it was discovered that Mr. Cannon had outstanding debts to the Philadelphia Parking Authority and was delinquent on student loans. BIE contacted Mr. Cannon on several occasions requesting that he provide documentation on how he was addressing those debts. Mr. Cannon failed to comply, and the Office of Enforcement Counsel took the appropriate actions to deny Mr. Cannon's application based on his failure to cooperate with BIE's investigation. On February 10th of 2020, Mr. Cannon filed his petition requesting that he be permitted to reapply early for his gaming employee occupation permit. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to Mr. Cannon's request based upon the relatively minor nature of his suitability issues. However, if granted, BIE will then determine during the background investigation whether Mr. Cannon still has the outstanding debts or whether he has satisfactorily addressed them. It's that request to be able to apply again for a permit that is now ready for the board's consideration.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve Terrence Cannon's petition for early reapplication for a gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you.
Seconded by Commissioner Mustio.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next, we have withdrawals and surrenders as well as reports and recommendations presented by Deputy Chief Counsel Steve Cook.
Good morning. The board has received several unopposed petitions to withdraw the applications or surrender the credentials of the following individuals and entities: Carl Icahn, Icahn Enterprises GP Inc., Icahn Enterprises LP, and IPHGP LLC. I would note for the record that those four actions involve Carl Icahn and those enterprises' involvement with United States playing cards, and not with any interest they have in the Harrah's Philadelphia property. Other withdrawals and surrenders include Delta Fuel Inc., Itai Freiberger, Kazuki Trust, Rutter's Store Number 68 in Anvil, and Rutter's Store Number 67 in Mercersburg. Also William E. Hogwood and Gregory Pets. The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection to any of these withdrawals or surrenders, and as a result, if the board grants them, they'd be doing so without prejudice to each of these parties.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Mustio. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board issue orders to approve the withdrawals and surrenders as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Rice will second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board for consideration are four reports and recommendations received from the Office of Hearings and Appeals. These reports and recommendations, along with the complete evidentiary record for each matter, have been provided to the board in advance of this meeting today. Blake Oberton's matter is the first report and recommendation before the board. Mr. Oberton holds a gaming employee occupation permit and was employed as a table games dealer at Harrah's, Philadelphia. On December 19th, 2019, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency suspension of Mr. Oberton's gaming employee occupation permit after receiving notice that he had been charged with a felony offense and multiple misdemeanor offenses after an alleged involvement in a domestic assault. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Mr. Oberton's gaming employee occupation permit as requested by Enforcement Counsel. A hearing in this matter was held on January 14th, 2020. OEC appeared offering testimony and documentary evidence about the pending criminal matter. Despite receiving proper notice, Mr. Oberton failed to appear and the hearing was held in his absence. After hearing all of the evidence presented, a report and recommendation was issued recommending that the suspension of Mr. Oberton's gaming employee occupation permit remain in effect, and that's the recommendation before the board today.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Reitzel. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the suspension of Blake Oberton's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next before the board is a report and recommendation pertaining to Michael Tran. Mr. Tran holds a gaming employee occupation permit and worked as a table games dealer at Harrah's, Philadelphia. On December 20th, 2019, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for an emergency suspension of Mr. Tran's gaming employee occupation permit after receiving notice that he had been criminally charged with numerous theft and gaming-related offenses. Specifically, it is alleged that on November 8th, 2019, Mr. Tran allowed multiple patrons to cheat by showing them his hole card 145 times. This resulted in a loss of $32,950 to Harrah's, Philadelphia. Mr. Tran admitted to his actions to the police when he was confronted. As a result of these charges, the board's executive director issued an emergency order suspending Mr. Tran's gaming employee occupation permit as requested by Enforcement Counsel. A hearing in this matter was held on January 22nd, 2020. OEC appeared at the hearing, offering testimony and documentary evidence. Despite receiving proper notice, Mr. Tran did not appear at the hearing, and it was held in his absence. After hearing the evidence presented, the report and recommendation issued by the hearing officer recommends that the suspension of Mr. Tran's gaming employee occupation permit remain in effect, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Commissioner Santoni. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding the suspension of Michael Tran's gaming and employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Jacob Leitner's petition for early removal from the board's involuntary exclusion list. By way of background, in January of 2017, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition to place Mr. Leitner on the exclusion list, alleging that in June 2016, while gaming at Mohegan Sun at Pocono Downs, he physically assaulted another patron. He was evicted from the casino and charged with harassment, disorderly conduct, and engaging in fighting. He did not respond to OEC's petition, a default judgment was filed, and the board ultimately placed Mr. Leitner on the exclusion list. In July of 2019, 2.5 years later, Mr. Leitner filed a petition requesting early removal from the exclusion list. The Office of Enforcement Counsel filed an answer objecting to Mr. Leitner's request. The hearing in this matter was held on December 11th, 2019. OEC attended the hearing, presented documentary and testimonial evidence. Mr. Leitner also appeared and testified on his own behalf. During his testimony, Mr. Leitner admitted to his conduct and expressed remorse for his actions. He essentially indicated that he acted out of character, is not generally a violent person, and was defending his sister who had been called a name by another patron. Subsequent to the hearing, a report and recommendation was issued recommending denial of Mr. Leitner's request for early removal from the exclusion list, as he did not present any evidence of extraordinary circumstances which would allow his removal from the list before 5 years had run. That's the recommendation before the board today, and the matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
This is Commissioner Smiler. Mr. Chairman, I move that the board adopt the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearings and Appeals regarding Jacob Leitner's petition for removal from the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Commissioner Cannolo, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion adopted.
The final report and recommendation before the board today pertains to Jonah Echevarria. On June 6, 2019, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a petition requesting that Mr. Echevarria be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list, alleging that on April 30th, 2019, he left his 7-year-old daughter in the car unattended while he gamed at Rivers, Philadelphia. The child was left alone for approximately 18 minutes before found by security. Security located Mr. Echevarria on the gaming floor. He was evicted for 24 hours from the casino, but no criminal charges were filed. A hearing in this matter was held in January, this past January. OEC appeared and presented evidence, testimony, and documentary, as well as surveillance video to support their petition. Mr. Echevarria appeared and testified on his own behalf, but he did not dispute leaving his daughter in the car unattended. After hearing all of the evidence presented, the report and recommendation issued recommends that Mr. Echevarria be placed on the board's involuntary exclusion list, and this matter is now ripe for the board's consideration.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Carnolo, and I move that the board adopts the report and recommendation issued by the Office of Hearing and Appeals regarding replacement of Jonah Echevarria on the PGCB involuntary exclusion list described by the Office of Chief Counsel.
Logan seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? The motion's adopted.
And that concludes all matters of the Office of Chief Counsel.
Thank you. I think the next matter up is the Bureau of Licensing with Director Sue Hensel. Are you there, Susan?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Chairman Barish and members of the board. Before the board today will be 1 video gaming terminal operator and 6 VGT establishments for licensure. In addition, there will be 750 principal entities and individuals, key employees, a qualifier, and gaming and non-gaming employees. Finally, there will be the consideration of 7 gaming service provider applicants. First for your consideration is a video gaming terminal operator license for Compass Gaming LLC. Compass Gaming is a Pennsylvania-based company. A VGT operator owns, services, and maintains VGTs for placement and operation at truck stop establishments. Compass Gaming LLC was previously issued a conditional VGT terminal operator license. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has completed its investigation, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with a background investigation and suitability report. I have provided you with a draft order and ask that you consider the order to license Compass Gaming LLC.
Cyrus Petrie on behalf of the Office of Enforcement Counsel. We have no objection.
Thank you, Cyrus. Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant Compass Gaming LLC's video gaming terminal operator license as described by the Bureau of Licensing. Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion's adopted.
In addition, we have consideration of 4 VGT establishments. VGT establishments are truck stops seeking to place VGTs in their businesses. Each of the companies was previously conditionally licensed. The Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement has now completed its investigation, including an evaluation that the companies meet the VGT establishment eligibility criteria, and the Bureau of Licensing has provided you with background investigation and suitability reports. Once fully licensed, the establishments can continue forward toward completing the steps necessary to commence VGT gaming. I have provided you with draft orders to license the following Love's Travel Stops and Country Store Inc. related entities. Love's Travel Stops and Country Store Inc. number 324, located at 440 West 3rd Street in Mifflinville. Number 358, located at 3700 Mountain Road in Hamburg. Number 366, located at 22 Old Forge Road, Jonestown. And number 407, located at 1165 Harrisburg Pike in Carlisle. I ask that you consider a motion to license these establishments.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Mustio. I move that the board grant Love's Travel Stops and Country Store Inc.'s video gaming terminal establishment licenses for stores 324, 358, 366, and 407 as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Reitzel seconds.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Also for your consideration are conditional VGT establishment licenses. The applicants are 2 CHR Corp. DBA Rudders Stores related entities. Those are Stores 41, located at 1621 West Cumberland Street in Lebanon, and Rudders Store 87, located at 731 Rishel Hill Road in Belfont, and a separate entity, Last Minute Mart, Inc., which is located on Montgomery Avenue, 511 Montgomery Avenue in Newcastle. The board may conditionally license an establishment provided the applicant has never been convicted of a felony, is current on state taxes, has submitted a completed application, and has not been convicted of a gambling law violation. A preliminary review of these applicants indicates that they meet this criteria. Note that unlike the establishments that were just fully licensed, these are strictly conditional approvals. Final approval will be based on the applicants meeting all the eligibility criteria provided in the statute. A final eligibility determination will follow investigation and site inspection by the Bureau of Investigations and Enforcement. I have provided you with draft orders addressing each of these applicants and ask that the board consider a motion to approve the conditional VGT establishment licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reitzel, and I move that the board grant the conditional video gaming terminal establishment licenses for CHR Corp. doing business as Rudders Store number 41 and Store 87, and Last Minute Mart, Inc., Montgomery Avenue, doing business as Last Minute Mart, as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next are approvals for one-year license extensions for the following entities. Conditional VGT establishment licensee PFJ Southeast LLC, doing business as Pilot Travel Centers number 708, and conditional sports wagering operator licensee SB Tech Malta Limited. Both companies were granted one-year conditional licenses approximately 1 year ago. Under the Gaming Act and board regulations, the board is authorized to extend the licenses for an additional 1 year for good cause. In each case, the background investigation and suitability report processes for the companies are continuing. I have provided you with draft orders and ask that you grant the one-year license extensions.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board grant the extension for conditional licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
In addition, there are principal entities and individuals, key employees, and a qualifier. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a proposed order for 5 principals, 4 key employees, and 1 qualifier. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Smiler, and I move that the board grant the principal, key, and GSP qualifier licenses as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Canola, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
There are also temporary licenses for your consideration. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order regarding the issuance of temporary licenses for 7 principals and 11 key employees. I ask that the board consider the order approving these licenses.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Canola. I move that the board grants a temporary principal and key employees accreditation as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
Next are gaming permits and non-gaming registrations. Prior to this meeting, the Bureau of Licensing provided you with a list of 449 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted temporary or full occupation permits and 120 individuals to whom the Bureau has granted registrations under the authority delegated to the Bureau of Licensing. I ask that the Board consider a motion approving the order.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board grant the gaming employee occupation permits and non-gaming employee registrations as described by the Bureau of Licensing. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion's adopted.
There are also recommendations of denial for 4 gaming and 3 non-gaming employee applicants. The applicants were notified that they were being recommended for denial and failed to request hearings within the specified timeframes. The Bureau of Licensing has provided you with orders addressing each of these applicants, who the Office of Enforcement Counsel has recommended for denial. I ask that the Board consider the orders approving these denials.
Enforcement Council continues to request denial in each instance.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Mustio. I move that the board deny the applications for gaming employee permits and non-gaming employee registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Second, Commissioner Reitzel.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matters for your consideration are withdrawal requests. In each case, the license, permit, or registration is no longer required. For today's meeting, I have provided the Board with 1 key, 117 gaming, and 36 non-gaming applicants. I ask that the Board consider the order approving the withdrawals.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Reitzel, I move that the board grant the withdrawal of key gaming and non-gaming employee applications as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Next, we have an order to certify Zuvid LLC. I ask that the Board consider the order approving this gaming service provider for certification.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve Zuvid LLC's application for gaming service provider certification as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
Finally, for your consideration are gaming service provider registrations. The Bureau of Licensing provided you with an order and an attached list of 6 registered gaming service provider applicants. I ask that the Board consider the order registering these gaming service providers.
Enforcement Council has no objection.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the applications for gaming service provider registration as described by the Bureau of Licensing.
Commissioner Cronin seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
That concludes the matters of the Bureau of Licensing.
Thank you very much, Susan. Next, Chief Counsel, Enforcement Counsel Cyrus Petrie, your turn.
The Office of Enforcement Counsel will present 8 matters today for the Board's consideration, in which we will request the approval of 2 revocations, 3 suspensions, and 3 involuntary exclusions. The next 5 matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed complaints seeking the revocation of 1 non-gaming employee registration and 1 gaming employee occupation permit issued by the Board, as well as the suspension of 2 non-gaming employee registrations and 1 gaming employee occupation permit issued by the Board. The complaints have been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeals and properly served upon the individual named in each complaint. The individual named in each complaint failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each respondent. Therefore, the facts in each complaint are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. I will provide a brief summary of the facts and make the request for the appropriate board action in each matter. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Maria Addison, who was observed taking checks meant for the rake box and placing them in her tip box while dealing poker at Harris, Philadelphia, thereby attempting to steal currency from Harris to which she was not entitled. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Maria Addison.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Kernodle. I move that the board approve the revocation of Maria Addison gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Logan seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Roman Marshall, who allegedly attacked an inspector of the Philadelphia Police Department after the inspector made efforts to investigate and apprehend Mr. Marshall for his role in a prior assault. As a result, Mr. Marshall was criminally charged with 2 felonies and 2 misdemeanors. According to the criminal docket, at least 1 felony charge remains pending. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Roman Marshall.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the suspension of Roman Marshall's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the non-gaming employee registration issued to Corey McMasters, who was arrested and charged with 3 felonies in Washington County, Pennsylvania, for submitting false information to his insurance carrier related to an automobile accident. According to the criminal docket, Mr. McMasters entered into a 24-month ARD program on October 8, 2019. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board suspend the non-gaming employee registration issued to Corey McMasters.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Mustio. I move that the board approve the suspension of Corey McMasters' non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Rice will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the suspension of the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Joshua Rivera, who was arrested and charged with 2 felonies, 2 misdemeanors, and a number of related summary offenses in Berks County for allegedly trespassing on a tow company's private property and causing approximately $20,000 in damage to the business. According to the criminal docket, all felony charges remain pending. At this time, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board suspend the gaming employee occupation permit issued to Joshua Rivera.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Rice will move that the board approve the suspension of Joshua Rivera's gaming employee occupation permit as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Santoni seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is the revocation of the non-gaming employee registration issued to James Watson for physically assaulting a Rivers, Philadelphia human resources manager after being informed that he was terminated from his employment. Mr. Watson was convicted of simple assault and harassment. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board revoke the non-gaming employee registration issued to James Watson.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Santoni moves that the board approve the revocation of James Watson's non-gaming employee registration as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Smiler seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The remaining matters on the agenda consist of enforcement actions in which the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed petitions seeking the involuntary exclusion of individuals whose presence in a licensed facility are deemed inimical to the interests of the Commonwealth and or licensed gaming therein. In each instance, the petition for exclusion has been filed with the Board's Office of Hearings and Appeal and properly served upon the individual named in the petition. The individual named in the petition failed to respond within 30 days as required by board regulation. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel filed a request for default judgment in each instance and properly served the same upon each named individual. Therefore, all facts in each petition are deemed admitted. All filed documents have been provided to the board, and the matters are presently ripe for the board's consideration. In each instance, if the board orders the proposed exclusion, each individual's photo, personal identifier, and a summary of the inimical conduct will be placed on the board's public website. The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Ronald Calhoun on the board's involuntary exclusion list for multiple past incidents at Pennsylvania licensed facilities, the last of which occurred in August of 2019 when Mr. Calhoun trespassed into the Valley Forge Casino after being permanently evicted and thereafter made terroristic threats to a Valley Forge Casino employee. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Ronald Calhoun on the involuntary exclusion list.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smiler moves that the board approve the addition of Ronald Calhoun to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Commissioner Cannolo, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The next matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Christopher Merrick on the board's involuntary exclusion list for his role in the scheme to steal revenue from Mohegan Sun Pocono by conspiring with a Mohegan Sun Pocono employee to obtain players' club cards that were fraudulently loaded with free slot play and fraudulently registered to other individuals' players' accounts. Mr. Merrick then uploaded the free slot play onto the slot machines in order to convert the free slot play into cash. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requests that the board place Christopher Merrick on the involuntary exclusion list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Cannolo, and I move that the board approve the addition of Christopher Merrick to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel.
Logan seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
The final matter on the agenda for the board's consideration is a request to place Kamil Dandy on the board's involuntary exclusion list for attempting to exchange $1,500 in counterfeit currency for gaming checks while gaming at a table game at Mohegan Sun Pocono. As a result, the Office of Enforcement Counsel requested the board place Kamil Dandy on the involuntary exclusion list.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Logan moves that the board approve the addition of Kamil Dandy to the PGCB involuntary exclusion list as described by the Office of Enforcement Counsel. Commissioner Mustio seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion's adopted.
That concludes our business.
Thank you, Cyrus. Well, that appears to conclude today's meeting. The next public meeting of the board will be held on Wednesday, April 29th at 10 o'clock, hopefully in the board's regular public meeting room at the Gaming Control Board's Office of Hearings and Appeals in Strawberry Square. With that said, all interested parties should continue to monitor our website for the latest information as to location and time of that meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Mustio moves adjournment.
Commissioner Reitzel seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion is adopted and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your patience and your cooperation, and stay safe.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.